The Sinister Witch of 3 a.m., 7 haunting visits exposed, unexplained horror revealed. In the heart of Glenwood Pines, shadows stretched like fingers reaching for the light. The tales of a sinister witch whispered across manicured lawns, sending shivers down the spines of the bravest moms. Children vanished from warm beds as the clock struck 3 a.m. Doors were locked tighter than the resolve of fearful parents, but they couldn't hide the hushed conversations behind closed windows. Sarah, a weary single mother, had heard the stories but cast them aside. A late shift at the diner left her exhausted, barely mustering the energy to check the locks once more before drifting off to sleep. But tonight felt different. Tonight the air was thick, almost alive, crackling with something unnameable. Hours slipped away and suddenly, a shriek pierced the silence. She jolted awake at 3 a.m., her heart pounding like a drum. Next to her lay not her darling Lily but a ring of dolls, their glassy eyes staring, watching, judging. Panic clawed at her throat as she called out, "Lily!" The house swallowed her voice. She jumped from the bed, the floor creaking beneath her frantic steps. Darkness loomed in every corner, twisting the familiar into something sinister. Sarah's hands trembled as she flung open doors, overturned furniture, each creaking sound a cruel reminder of her growing dread. The hallway felt endless, stretching beyond reality. The walls, once her sanctuary, now closed in like a trap. She burst into Lily's room, her heart thudding empty. The bed was as still as her breath. With every fiber of her being, she feared what she might find, but she had to look. "Lily!" She cried again, choking on desperation. The only reply was a haunting silence, punctuated by the distant hum of the outside world. Sarah tore through the door, the chill of night wrapping around her as she stepped into the street. What met her was a frozen tableau, neighbors standing outside like statues, fear etched in their expressions. They turned their heads slowly, whispers swirling like leaves in the wind. She felt their eyes on her, piercing through the flimsy barriers of familiarity. Were they watching? Judging? Protecting? "Please," she begged, stumbling towards them, grasping for a shred of support. But their mutterings faded away, leaving her feeling more alone than ever. The police, when she turned to them, were indifferent. Their dismissive attitude was a punch to her gut, they brushed off her fears as mere paranoia. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's frantic mind raced. She needed more than reassurance, she needed answers. Tales of the sinister witch were rooted deep in the town's dark past. 7 children had disappeared, leaving behind only reports of sightings and rumors slinking through the cobwebbed corners of their community. The truth knotted in her stomach. What if the witch was just a scapegoat, a cover for something darker, lurking in plain sight? The clock ticked mercilessly toward midnight, the shadows of the neighborhood whispering louder. The panic clawed at her, and Sarah's grip on reality began to fray. She felt eyes everywhere, watching, waiting for her to realize the real horrors weren't born from the ghost stories, they thrived in the thriving closeness of her own backyard. But it was too late to turn back. The chilling understanding that danger lay not in the witch's tale, but among the faces she once trusted solidified in her heart. Safety was but a thin veneer, and everything she believed was about to shatter. As fear and dread wove their spell around her, the true nightmare wouldn't wait until the clock ticked into the dark hours. It was already here, waiting for 3 a.m. to strike again. The wind howled through the trees, carrying whispers that slithered into Sarah's ears like cold fingers. She turned quickly, scanning the shadows around her, heart hammering in her chest. The neighbors continued to stare, their faces empty, as if carrying burdens far too heavy to share. The haunting stillness wrapped around her like a shroud. "Where's Lily?" Her voice cracked. Suddenly, the enormous weight of isolation pressed down on her. The houses surrounding her stood still, darkened windows like watchful eyes, yet none offered the comfort she desperately sought. A flicker caught her eye movement across the street. A tall figure, shrouded in black, darted behind a tree. It flickered like a shadow, and dread pooled in her stomach. The clock on the nearby church tower struck midnight, each chime echoing like a death knell. "Hey! You!" she yelled, charging forward, fueled by desperation. But as she neared, the figure slipped deeper into darkness, as if the night itself had consumed it. The neighbors remained indifferent, their gazes locked on her, yet utterly vacant. Sarah stumbled, her breath coming in ragged gasps, as her thoughts tangled around a singular question: who was this shadow? Was it connected to Lily's disappearance? She pivoted back towards her home, and the realization hit her hard. The dolls! Those cursed dolls, had they come alive? Were they connected to this witch that everyone seemed to fear? Glancing down at her hands, she noticed the ring of dolls that had once graced Lily's bed, now forgotten on the floor, eyes glinting, eerily bright in the moonlight. They felt like judgment, digging deep. Sarah wrestled with the fear constricting her throat. With a deep breath, she recalled her grandmother's warning stories of a witch weaving spells through toys, planting seeds of terror in childlike dreams. Did Lily fall victim to one of those cursed tales? Frantically, Sarah began retracing her steps, heading towards the heart of where it began. The park at the end of their street lay silent, shrouded by thick fog, transforming the familiar into an alien landscape. And wherever she looked, there was an eerie sense of anticipation in the air, as if the very trees were alive and waiting. "Lily!" she shouted, voice echoing strangely in the empty space. A low rustle came from the bushes, and her breath caught in her throat. The fog swirled, and she stumbled forward cautiously. A chilling laugh, mocking and high-pitched, reached her ears, a laugh she recognized too well. "Lily?" she called, hope battling fear, heart racing as she peered through the curtain of mist. And then she saw her, standing still, just beyond the tree-line, clutching one of the dolls. The child's eyes were glassy, unrecognizable, as if the light within them had been snuffed out. "Help me, Mommy!" Lily's voice was faint, disconnected, barely reaching Sarah through the thickening gloom. But as Sarah reached out, the shadows began to swirl, coiling tighter around them. A chaotic laughter echoed through the trees as the temperature dropped. The laughter wasn't just childlike, it held a darkness, a sinister glee that sent chills down her spine. Suddenly, out of the dark, more figures emerged, children with vacant faces, holding dolls that pulsed with a life of their own. They surrounded Lily, their eyes gleaming with malice. All at once, Sarah realized they weren't there to play. "Stay back!" Sarah cried, stepping forward, but her words were met with cold silence. Just then, a voice cut through the haze, deeper and more ominous than the children's laughter. "You shouldn't have come here." The chill that ran down her spine was more than the cold air, it was the dawning terror that something had seeped into Glenwood Pines, something born from the very whispers of fear. With a burning desperation, Sarah lunged towards her daughter, enraged by the growing darkness around them. But as her fingers brushed Lily's shoulder, the laughter rose to a deafening crescendo, swallowing her whole and dissolving into the night. The last thing she heard was the whisper of the wind, carrying a terrible truth. "Welcome to our game, it's your turn." What had she unleashed? As the shadows closed in, she realized the true horror had only just begun. The fog twisted and curled like living tendrils, wrapping itself around Sarah as she stood frozen, heart pounding in her chest. The laughter faded, but the darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. Her mind raced. This wasn't just a game, the children weren't just playing. They were trapped, ensnared by something far older and malevolent. "Lily!" she cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. But the sound barely escaped before the fog swallowed it whole, absorbing her worry and twisting it into despair. The children circled Lily, their eyes wide but lifeless, as if their very souls had been replaced by the dolls they clutched. One boy stepped forward, his gaze fixated on Sarah. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, voice dripping with mock innocence, but the humor twisted like a blade in her gut. "The witch said you'd come. She's waiting for you." As the realization hit, a frigid pulse of terror swept through her limbs. The legends whispered by her grandmother surged back to the forefront of her mind, stories of a witch who nourished her power on fear, drawing on the innocent dreams of children she captured. "Leave her alone!" Sarah shouted, fists clenched. "Let her go!" The children's laughter erupted again, harsh and jeering, cutting through the fog. "You can't save her, Mommy!" they chanted, voices blending into a sinister symphony. "We play, you lose." Panic surged through Sarah as the shadows around her thickened, twisting and crawling toward her like serpents hungry for their next meal. She stepped back, eyes darting around for any sign of escape. The trees towered ominously, their branches clawing at the sky as if they were reaching for a lost soul. In her frantic search, she locked eyes with Lily. For a brief moment, clarity illuminated her daughter's expression, like a single ray of light piercing the suffocating shadows. "Mommy!" Lily called again, her voice steadier now. "You have to find the dolls." "What?" Sarah managed, dread choking her voice. "What do you mean?" But the others advanced, their wiry figures moving in unison, a grotesque ballet of malice. "The dolls will show you," the boy said. "They hold her." A shudder coursed through Sarah, the weight of their words sinking in. It wasn't just about saving Lily, it was about delving into the very thing that had entangled them all in this nightmare. "Leave her!" Sarah shouted, pushing through the haze, elbows out, desperation turning to raw fury. But the children simply laughed harder, taunting her, their eyes glowing in the darkness, like embers burning in the night. "Mommy!" Lily cried again, reaching out. "You have to fight." The moment broke as the boy lunged at Sarah, fingers outstretched like claws. She reacted on instinct, spinning away and knocking into one of the dolls. It tumbled to the ground, and as it rolled into the mist, a shriek erupted from the depths, echoing hauntingly in the darkness. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and roots sprang alive, snaking around her ankles, pulling her further into the darkness. "You have to play our game," the children hissed, their eyes flashing. "Or they will take you too." Fear surged in waves. Sarah felt every heartbeat pounding like a war drum in her ears. There was no choice. She had to confront this witch, to face the truth behind the dolls and free Lily from their grasp. "Bring it on," she hissed defiantly, bracing herself against the oncoming wave of shadows. As the laughter roared around her, its echo transformed into a battle cry. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the path was clear. She must unearth the source of this darkness. The dolls and their secrets. This was only the beginning. As shadows threatened to swallow her whole, a whisper slithered through the darkness, "Find us and discover the truth." In that chilling second, a pair of piercing eyes glinted from the murk, gleaming with dreadful recognition. What truth would she uncover when the game unfolded? What would she have to sacrifice to save her daughter? The wind shifted, and the night was alive with sinister promise. The fog was alive, a living entity, thickening around Sarah as she moved deeper into the heart of darkness. The children faded into the background, haunting specters in the night as she pushed forward, spurred by the desperate call of her daughter. The laughter, cruel and mocking, faded out, replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the rustle of unseen things lurking in the mist. "Find the dolls." Lily's voice echoed in Sarah's mind, the words like a drumbeat urging her onward. She stumbled, the ground uneven beneath her feet, roots snaking across the path like grasping fingers, desperate to pull her down. Fear gripped her heart, but she couldn't turn back. Not now. Not when the stakes were so high ahead. Shapes loomed in the fog, indistinct but palpable. They felt familiar, somehow wrong, as Sarah's pulse quickened. Memories began to swirl in her mind. Old toys, forgotten childhoods, the laughter of children that once brought joy now twisted into a grotesque echo of her torment. There was something more here than just the fear of the witch. It was the weight of innocence lost. Guideposts marked her path, the dolls. She squinted, straining to see through the shroud of white, searching for any sign of them. There! A flash of porcelain, a dull gleam reflected from something half buried in the detritus of the darkened ground. Had Lily hidden them? Or was this just another trap? Sarah rushed towards it, her feet heavy with the weight of dread. She knelt, grasping the first doll that came into view. It was small but unnaturally cold, its eyes black beads that felt like they were gazing into her very soul. A shiver swept through her as she held it up. The moment she touched it, visions surged through her mind, images of twisted laughter, frantic games, the children dancing in the fog, joining the witch in something dark and depraved. "No!" she gasped, dropping the doll back onto the ground as if it had burned her. The laughter returned, sharper now, slicing through her thoughts. It grew louder, a cacophonous symphony of torment that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. The more she fought it, the more it engulfed her. "Mommy!" Lily's voice broke through the chaos, the starkness of it grounding Sarah. She could see her now, a small figure at the center of those mocking children, eyes filled with hope, though her body stood frozen. "Just a little further," Sarah whispered under her breath, summoning every ounce of courage. She turned back to the ground, searching for more dolls, her fingers urgently scraping against the earth. "Find us," the whispers coiled around her, and suddenly 3 more dolls came into sight, lying blatantly as though beckoning her to choose. Each a twisted reflection of childhood innocence, cracked porcelain, frayed hair, painted smiles that dripped with a sinister edge. No room for uncertainty. She seized another, her fingers shaking as she lifted it. The moment she did, an icy wind crashed around her, the laughter transforming into screams, all the children wailing as one dot a figure appeared, emerging from the fog, looming and shadowed. She felt it draw closer, malevolent energy pulsing in the air. The witch. With a heart-racing impact, realization hit Sarah. She was not just saving Lily, she had awakened something that had been sleeping for far too long. The dolls were not just vessels, they were keys, and she had let them in. "Stop!" she shouted, though fear enveloped her like a shroud. "Get away from her!" But the witch just laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the fog, growing stronger, wrapping around Sarah, choking her with its grasp. "It's too late," the voice hissed. "The game has just begun," and in that moment, as darkness swirled and the fog thickened once more, Sarah saw something glimmer beneath the ground, a flicker of hope, with a final nail in her coffin. How could she possibly fight an entity fed by fear? What would she face next in this unholy game of shadows? The laughter swirled around Sarah, a cacophony of madness, as the fog thickened. The witch stood just beyond the reaches of her sight, an intangible fear made flesh. Panic surged through her veins as an awful clarity swallowed her whole. Each doll was a prisoner, each a reflection of their lost innocence, and she held the keys to their torment. "Mommy!" Lily's voice echoed again, pulling her back from the brink of despair. The figure of her daughter remained frozen, a bright beacon in this realm of shadows. In that haunting fog, Sarah forced herself to breathe, her heart pounding like a drum signaling the approach of death. She glanced back at the doll in her trembling hands. "What are you?" she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. The doll seemed to shudder as she spoke, its blank eyes glinting with dark knowledge, mocking her naivete. Just then, the laughter shifted to a whisper, "Another choice, another chance." "Will you save her?" Sarah felt a spasm of rage. "I will. I'll do whatever it takes," she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos, the conviction hardening her resolve. But another doll caught her eye, half buried in the ground, its porcelain face cracked but strangely alluring. She could sense its pull, an insidious whisper drawing her closer. She reached for it, aware of the danger but desperate to save Lily. The moment her fingers closed around the doll, icy fingers wrapped around her wrist. "Fool!" The witch's voice slithered through the fog. "Can you not see? You've opened the door. They are coming for you." A scream clawed its way up Sarah's throat as shadows crept in, eager and hungry. The figures of children materialized, shouldering aside the fog as faces twisted in wicked delight. They danced in and out, their laughter morphing into shrieks of pure malice. "No!" Sarah cried as she stumbled back, dropping the doll. The whispers grew louder, drowning her thoughts. Each child bore a doll, their eyes glowing with a malevolence that set her nerves ablaze. They were all intertwined in this cursed game, her daughter ensnared at the center. "Lily!" she gasped, rushing forward, but the ground shook violently. The world spun, shadows clutching at her ankles like ravenous beasts. She couldn't reach her. "Say the words, Mother! Or lose her forever!" The witch taunted, her figure now pulsating like the fog itself, shifting and writhing. "What words?" Sarah choked out, desperation clawing at her voice. "Words of power, the ink of life." In her mind, memories slammed into her. Old stories her mother once told her, spells lost to time but flickering in her memory like lightning. I want to leave her." She drew in a shuddering breath, searching the fog for the right words. But another child stepped forward, its voice eerily familiar. It's too late. She has chosen. The child pointed. Betrayed, Sarah turned to see the dolls pulling themselves together, twisting into monstrous replicas of ghostly children, their eyes pools of darkness, grinning wider with every beat of her heart. They crawled towards her like an army of nightmares. Stay back! She roared, but as if her voice had no weight, they lunged, teeth bared. Just as they closed in, she caught one last glimpse of Lily, her eyes wide with fear, pleading for help. Time slowed down in that heartbeat, something within Sarah ignited a fierce protector. I refuse to let you take her. She screamed, channeling her every ounce of strength. But then the fog peeled back, revealing a gaping maw beneath. The ground quaked, drawing her in as tendrils of darkness reached for her. And in the distance, laughter erupted once more, an echo that would haunt her for eternity. What had she awakened in the depths of that fog? What unspeakable choice loomed ahead? The dolls were straining, pulling at the seams of reality. Mommy! Lily's haunted voice called again, a chilling entreaty pierced through the growing chaos. Too vulnerable now to turn back, Sarah felt a decision loom. Could she still save her daughter, or would they both become lost in this nightmare forever? Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift like quicksand, pulling her deeper into the abyss of shadows. Fear clawed at her throat as she glanced back at Lily. Her daughter was still there, a flickering light amidst the encroaching darkness. Desperation surged through Sarah's veins. With a primal scream, she lunged toward her, but the ground erupted like a volcano, an explosion of ash and fog forcing her backward. Mommy! Please! Lily's voice trembled, echoing from the abyss, piercing her heart like a knife. Hold on! Sarah shouted, her own voice swallowed by the cacophony of laughter and despair. She felt the dolls shifting again, reforming, gathering energy from her fear. One by one, they began to transform, their empty eyes alight with unholy glee, faces breaking into sinister smiles that cut through the suffocating fog. No! You won't take her! Sarah's voice cracked. She turned to the witch, who stood at the periphery, a figure cloaked in malevolence. What do you want from us? The witch grinned, her teeth jagged, like shards of glass. What I want is simple. A soul for a soul. An exchange. Your daughter for. Stop! Sarah screamed, a wild thought striking her. I'll do it. I'll give you my soul. A silence fell, thick and unnatural, and she felt the worlds around her locked together in a grim dance. Lily gasped. Mommy, no. Yes. Sarah shouted back, darker determination bubbling inside her. If it means saving you, then I'll do it. The witch tilted her head, intrigued. Are you truly prepared to give up your light for your daughter? A life for a life? Do it! Sarah cried, her voice breaking. Just take me and leave her alone. The ground quaked beneath them as the witch's laughter swelled, a cruel, intoxicating sound that vibrated through her bones. Very well, dear mother. This pact cannot be broken. A dizzying whirlwind enveloped Sarah, the world twisting in on itself. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, to flee from the power that hung in the air, thick like molasses. As the darkness coiled around her, Lily's terrified eyes began to fade, becoming nothing more than a distant star in a collapsing sky. Lily! No! And then it happened. A blinding flash of light split through the fog as the witch raised a trembling hand. Sarah felt herself being pulled away from Lily, a gravitational force dragging her into the void. No! Please, let her stay with me. But it was too late, the deal was struck. Sarah felt her essence unraveling as the witch's dark laughter enveloped her. She relinquished everything, the breath of life, the warmth of love, her memories all absorbed by the witch and her dollish army. Suddenly, silence fell, heavy and suffocating. All that was left was a backdrop of swirling fog and shadows, where once existence had flourished. Sarah gasped, pierced through her being with a realization more horrifying than the witch's embrace. She was trapped in the very fog she had fought against. In that fog, she could still feel Lily's essence, her spirit calling out. Mommy! Panic turned into despair as a piercing vision took hold. The dolls were now free but twisted, and surrounded by a waking nightmare of children who would never age, eternally lost, eternally waiting. Sarah screamed, an unending cry that echoed through the empty expanse. She was one of them, now lost to the witch, the laughter echoing as her tether to humanity knotted tightly until it snapped, but deep within that fog, a flicker of something familiar shimmered. A glimmer of hope, or was it a sinister trap? In the distance, a shadow stirred as the witch twisted her fingers, summoning forth another wave of darkness. What happened to Sarah's soul? Would Lily become the next prisoner? Would darkness seize them both forever? The laughter began to rise again, and the dolls turned towards the source, their glowing eyes set on the horizon. Another soul, another chance, whispered the witch, her voice curling around Sarah like smoke. Would this nightmare ever end? The fog thickened, swirling with a dreadful hunger. Sarah's world spun in shades of gray and black, the laughter of the witch haunting her senses. It was all around, echoing through the void like a twisted melody. Each cackle seemed to mock her, echoing her failure to save Lily. She strained to feel her daughter, to pull her spirit close, but the weight of despair kept her anchored in shadows. Suddenly, without warning, a flicker of warmth brushed against her consciousness. A pulse of light danced just beyond her reach. "Mommy!" Lily's voice pierced through the darkness, stronger now, a beacon of hope urging Sarah towards it. "Lily!" Sarah screamed, her heart pounding. She moved through the fog, each step heavy with dread and longing, the laughter momentarily silenced as if the darkness itself held its breath. The mist parted, revealing a grotesque parade of dolls, their porcelain faces smeared with shadow. Their eyes glowed with a malevolence that soured her stomach. They stopped to watch her, twisted smiles stretching across their cheeks, and something inside Sarah cracked with a chilling realization: these weren't just toys. They were the lost souls of children, trapped forever in this haunted realm. "Look, Mommy! They're playing!" Lily's voice wafted through the looming darkness, sweetly innocent, yet tinged with a desperate edge. "Lily, don't!" Sarah's instincts howled. She pushed forward, terrified of what those dolls might do. But the fog thickened, swirling, wrapping around her limbs, trying to pull her back into its suffocating grip. "Come play with us," a doll whispered, stepping closer. Its voice was thin, like a strand of spider silk. "We need you here forever." "No!" Sarah screamed. She lunged towards the flicker of light that was her daughter, but every movement felt like swimming against a strong current. The dolls followed her, their laughter building in a cacophony of madness, taunting her with the choice she had made, how willingly she had offered her soul. "Trade with me!" Another doll shrieked, its eyes glinting with dark glee. "We can be merry together." "Enough! Leave her alone!" Sarah shouted, desperation amplifying her energy. She summoned every ounce of strength within her, trying to break through the murmurs and madness. "I'll fight you. I want to lose my daughter too." With that, she felt the warmth of Lily's essence tugging at her heart. The flicker brightened, pulling her forward. Sarah fought against the thick, cold fog, and with a final surge, she reached out, grasping for Lily, but just as she felt a familiar spark, darkness exploded around her. The witch's laughter returned, more menacing than ever. "You truly think you can thwart me, dear mother? Souls are like threads, once woven, they cannot be undone." Sarah screamed, "No!" The air crackled, shadows twisting into grotesque figures that closed in around her, their hands beckoning her to join their eternal dance, and then, the dolls converged, their eyes piercing into her soul. "Join us, Sarah!" they cried in unison. "Become part of our play." A surge of terror coursed through her. Would she become another lost soul, another plaything in this sinister world? But there, among the shadows, something else appeared, a transient vision of the life she once knew, laughter echoing through light-filled rooms, her arms wrapped around Lily. "Fight! Please don't let them take you." Lily's voice came again, desperate but close, with a forceful will. Sarah clung to that memory. She could feel the threads of her past wrapping tightly around her being, illuminating the fog with shimmering light. "Not today!" she howled, pushing back against the tide. But then, she felt it, a cold, smothering grasp closing around her heart. The witch emerged, eyes burning with fury. Your resistance will only make it sweeter when I claim you. You've chosen darkness, now, face the consequences. The world around her shimmered with a tantalizing light and suffocating darkness, like a complex game of tug-of-war with her very essence at stake. Would Sarah be able to pull herself back into the light, or had she already lost her last chance to save her daughter? The fog rolled in thickly again, smothering the light. The laughter became all-consuming, enveloping her in chaos, and the silhouette of the witch loomed ever closer, forming an unholy promise of despair. Would the final act unfold at dawn, or had Sarah already danced her last jig with darkness? Only the sinister silence remained, waiting to unveil its final performance. The darkness pressed in, a suffocating blanket that stung Sarah's skin. Her heart hammered in her chest as desperation clawed at her throat. "Lily!" She shouted again, but her voice was swallowed by the fog, a faint whisper lost in the cacophony of laughter. The dolls drew closer, their porcelain faces reflecting the ghostly glow of fading light. Sarah could see the twisted joy in their eyes, the ecstasy of tormenting the living. Each step was a struggle, each breath felt thicker, filling her with dread. "Forever is such a wonderful promise," one doll cooed, tilting its head, its eyes glimmering with a predatory hunger. "Once you're here, you'll never want to leave." "Don't listen!" Sarah screamed, rallying every ounce of her strength. The flicker of warmth from Lily remained, a guiding star in the overwhelming dark. She fought against the grasping shadows like a lifeline in the storm. But the witch was there, looming like a storm cloud, her laughter cruel and mocking. "You're merely delaying the inevitable. You belong to us now." With sudden rage, Sarah charged forward, the warmth of her daughter pulling her onward. "I won't let you take her." Each step felt like wading through concrete, but she wouldn't give in. "Help us, Mommy!" the dolls chorused, their voices blending into a haunting melody, luring her with every word. "We want to play, and you can join us." "Stop! Get away!" She swept her arms outward, but their tiny hands reached for her with a sinister confidence. The ground beneath her rumbled ominously, as if the very earth desired to swallow her whole. Then, silence fell. The fog parted momentarily, revealing a shadowy glen where a single beam of light shot through like a divine arrow. In its glow stood Lily, her hair cascading down her shoulders, her eyes wide with fear. "Mommy! I'm right here!" Her sweet voice sliced through the tension. "Lily!" Sarah felt a rush of new energy as she moved closer, the light radiating hope. She was almost there, the warmth of their connection thrumming in her veins. Suddenly, the witch howled, bringing darkness crashing back around them. "You're doomed if you think you can save her." With a primal scream, Sarah surged forward, breaking free of the fog's icy hold, just within reach of Lily. "Take my hand." But the dolls tightened their grip, their laughter turning to wails of anguish, trying to pull her back into the abyss. "No! You can't leave us. Join the fun." "Lily, hold on." Sarah's fingers grasped nothing but cold air where her daughter should have been. The witch cackled, her voice like shards of glass slicing through the air. "Embrace your fate, Sarah." Just then, without warning, the ground shook violently, and the fog rose like an angry tide, twisting around her, filling her lungs with despair. Sarah began to see flashes of visions, moments of Lily's life, moments shared, their laughter echoing in daylight, as vivid as the sun. With each flash, her resolve grew. "No!" she cried defiantly. "I won't let this darkness win." She took a deep breath, envisioning that radiant light. With everything in her, she tore herself free from the grasping shadows, reaching for the ethereal glimmer of her daughter, but the instant she felt the warmth of Lily's essence, the fog twisted and morphed, a cacophony screaming her name. "Join us, Sarah. Join our play." Sarah felt pulled in two directions, one toward the sweet light of her daughter, the other toward the suffocating cold, where the witch and the dolls awaited with glee. "Stay. Play forever!" they shrieked, their voices mingling into a nightmarish chorus. Then, just as it seemed Sarah could hold on, the witch unleashed a final wave of darkness, sending her reeling. "You can't escape." In that moment of uncertainty, Sarah glimpsed a door in the shadows, a way out. But the choice hung heavy in the thick air, fraught with desperation. Step into the light to save Lily, or succumb to the darkness to join the dolls forever. Mommy? Please. Lily's cry was a lifeline. With her heart echoing in her ears, Sarah took a step, her fate hanging on the edge of a knife. What would she choose? Could she truly save her child, or would the dark spirits consume them both? The air around her crackled with tension, the doorway looming like a siren. Would it lead to salvation or an even darker fate? The moment Sarah moved toward the door, the shadows recoiled as if stung, a menacing hiss issuing from unseen mouths. The room around her trembled with an eerie energy, the very fabric of reality twisting into grotesque shapes. Each doll seemed to pulse with a sinister life, their once frozen features now animated by a darkness that thrived on fear. Don't go! The dolls screeched in unison, their voices rising to a high, cacophonous pitch. Stay and play with us. The laughter morphed into piercing shrieks, scraping against Sarah's ears. She staggered back, instinctively raising her arms to shield herself from their grasp. But her resolve was firm. No! I won't let you take me! She yelled, her voice strained, tremors coursing through her limbs. Forever is a long time, one doll whispered, its smooth face twitching into a hideous grin. You can be a part of us. We'll never be alone again. I would rather die. She shrieked, shaking off despair to focus on the light beckoning in the distance. It felt like a heartbeat, a lifeline that pulsed with warmth. She dashed toward the illumination, every beat of her heart echoing Lily's name, a prayer to the fading light. Just as she reached the threshold of illumination, a strong force gripped her shoulders, pulling back with a vice-like strength. The witch emerged from the deep shadows, her eyes glowing like coals in a fire. You think you can escape? She rasped, her voice a low growl, thick with malice. This is where you belong. Desperation surged through Sarah, drowning out the witch's taunts. With each inch she pushed forward, the ground beneath her cracked and groaned like a living creature in pain. Let me go! She howled, shaking loose the witch's icy fingers. But the darkness surged, a black tide trying to drag her down into nothingness. Don't listen to her! Lily's voice pierced through the fog, clear and melodic. Mommy! Please! I need you! The sight of Lily brought fresh tears to Sarah's eyes. Her heart thundered in her chest as she found the strength to tear away from the witch's grasp and hurtle toward the light. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for her child. The very essence of a mother's love propelled her, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the despair. The air shimmered around her as she stepped closer, desperation fueling her every move. All at once, the fog thickened again, enveloping her in a suffocating embrace. It became harder to breathe, the weight of the darkness pressing in. But she could see Lily's silhouette, the gentle glow illuminating her form against the shadows. Mommy! Lily whispered, her voice trembling, a haunting note that resonated deep within Sarah's soul. Don't be afraid. Suddenly, the witch's laughter erupted in a deafening crescendo. You will join us, Sarah. You think you can escape your fate? You're mine. A bone-chilling scream rent the air as the dolls lunged forward, arms outstretched, claws sharp and eager. Sarah felt their touch, a cold grip that chilled her to the bone. The warmth of Lily seemed to fade, the light flickering like a dying ember. In a moment of sheer panic, she realized the truth: she had to fight. With a deep breath, she drew strength from every cherished moment with her daughter and screamed, I choose love. I choose my daughter. The darkness screamed back, a howl of rage and despair. Just then, with a blinding flash, the light pulsed, pushing back against the shadows. Everything shifted. The dolls froze, their faces contorting in confusion as the witch shrieked in fury, but before Sarah could take another step forward, the ground cracked open beneath her feet. With a final scream, she plunged into the darkness, reaching out desperately for Lily. Would they fall into an abyss of despair, or find their way back to each other? The very ground around her seemed alive, insatiable, and Sarah clung to the fading image of her daughter, praying the light would return. The darkness whispered cruel promises as Sarah plummeted through the void, the chilling laughter of the witch echoing around her. Time slowed, her breath becoming a whisper against the chaos. But deep in her heart, a fierce resolve ignited. She would pull through whatever nightmare awaited her. Lily! She cried out, the name reverberating like a lifeline, but the echo was swallowed by the abyss. Fear gripped her throat. What if she couldn't reach her daughter in time? What if she was lost forever? Yet, even as panic threatened to overwhelm her, she focused on the single thread of warmth that still connected her to Lily. Suddenly, as if by magic, she landed with a thud on solid ground. The world shifted. Fog swirled around her, the sound of laughter sickly sweet fighting to claw back her courage. She pushed through the blinding mist, clawing forward with determined breaths. Lily! Where are you? Her voice burst into the fog, desperate and piercing. Like a beacon, it cut through the darkness, and for a brief moment, silence fell. Then, she saw her, a flicker of light penetrating the shroud, a familiar silhouette within the chaos. Mommy! Lily's voice rang like music, beckoning Sarah closer. Hold on, I'm coming. Sarah dashed toward her, but the ground beneath her trembled with fury. Shadows rippled, threatening to pull her back. Each step felt like running through quicksand, their icy fingers grappling for her ankles. The dolls emerged from the dark, grotesque facsimiles of innocence, their stitched grins wide and mocking. You can't escape. They chanted, fluttering around her like an army of lost souls. No! Sarah fought against their encroaching laughter. You don't own me, you don't own my daughter. With renewed fervor, she mustered her strength from every heartbeat she shared with Lily, every joyful moment in small triumph. With a fierce roar, she shoved past the shadows, pushing against the tide of despair. The fog began to part, revealing a clearer path. She caught glimpses of her daughter's terrified eyes, locked in a haze of shadow and light. Mommy, help! The plea twisted like a dagger in Sarah's heart, sharpening her focus. She needed to reach Lily before it was too late. Finally, she bounded forward, lunging through the thick mist. The witch stood there, a dark specter of madness, grinning wide. You're too late. The game will claim you both, she taunted, extending crooked fingers. No! Sarah shouted, feeling the raw energy surge through her veins. You don't get to take her. In that moment, everything shifted. Every doll lost their grip, their faces twisted in fear as the shadows pulled back. Sarah felt the bond with Lily tug hard, guiding her in a torrent of love. The faint light pulsed brighter, revealing a clearing bathed in shimmering brilliance, a stark contrast to the hollow dark that choked her. Take my hand! Sarah cried, reaching out as the lingering darkness fought harder but began to crack. Lily ran toward her, dodging the grasping shadows. Mommy! I'm so scared! The child's voice broke through the fog more clearly, full of pain but raised in hope. With one swift motion, their hands clasped. The warmth surged between them, a tether stronger than fear, shaking the very essence of darkness threatening to tear them apart. Now! Sarah shouted, pulling them forward with sheer willpower. The witch howled, rage and desperation clawing at her throat as the light enveloped them both. No! The witch screamed, but the light consumed her shrieks, fracturing reality itself. The fog exploded outward, shadows retreating like frightened animals, howling as they fell back into oblivion. A blinding flash shattered the oppressive gloom, and the two souls swept up together in radiant energy, bursting free into a warm dawn peeking over the treetops of Glenwood Pines. As air filled their lungs, Sarah felt the sweet sting of freedom, real, vibrant, and deeply reassuring. Lily stood by her side, shaking but unharmed, her bright eyes wide with wonder. Mommy! Lily whimpered. Did we win? Yeah, sweetheart, we did. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, a mixture of relief and unyielding love flooding her heart. She pulled Lily close, feeling the warmth of her daughter melt away the horrors they defaced. Yet, even in that moment of triumph, Sarah knew their battle was not forgotten. In the heart of darkness, glimpses of that haunting laughter lingered on the breeze. But as long as they were together, love would guard them against whatever shadows dared to resurface. As they stood hand in hand, emerging from the fear, they allowed the fresh light to guide them home. It felt like a victory engraved in both their spirits, a reminder of hope eternal and the power of a mother's love. This was their story, and it was far from over. As they stepped into the embrace of sunlight, Sarah whispered a vow into the breeze. You'll never take us again. And somewhere in the fog, a promise, both a threat and a challenge, whispered back. The game isn't over, not yet. Now, if you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and keep the tales alive. Don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this mind-bending ending. And finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this chilling conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.